everything. Have you ever walked away from a conversation wishing you'd said something differently, stronger, clearer, with more confidence? Maybe your voice trembled during an important meeting, everything. Maybe your words got lost when all you wanted was to be heard. The truth is, confident speaking isn't about having a perfect voice. It's about having presence, everything. It's about owning your space, commanding attention without force, and expressing your thoughts so that people not only listen, but feel your message. In this audiobook, Everything, we're going to break the silent barriers that keep you from speaking your truth with clarity, confidence, and power. Because when you learn to speak confidently, everything, you don't just change how others see you. You change how you see yourself. There's a moment right before you speak when everything goes quiet. Your heart beats a little faster, everything. Your thoughts rush and your mouth suddenly feels dry. It's in that exact moment, that fragile space between silence and sound, where your confidence lives or hides. For most people, everything, it hides. Not because they don't have something valuable to say, but because somewhere along the way, they learned to question the worth of their own voice. Think about it. From childhood, everything, we're taught to speak only when spoken to stay quiet to avoid trouble, to not interrupt, to be polite even when we want to disagree. Over time, everything, these small lessons can bury something vital, the belief that your voice deserves to be heard. And so, you grow up editing yourself. You soften your tone to be liked. Everything, you hold back opinions to avoid conflict. You hesitate to speak up in rooms that feel too big. You become fluent in silence, not confidence. Confidence, though, everything, isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, one honest expression at a time. It's not loudness. It's not charisma. It's a deep everything, unshakable knowing that what you have to say matters. The problem is, many people tie their sense of confidence to how others react, whether they approve, smile, or nod, everything. But true confidence isn't external. It begins in the quiet space within you, where your voice first takes shape. I remember a woman who once told me that she hated speaking up in meetings. Everything. She said she'd rehearse ideas in her head for minutes, even hours before presenting them, but when the moment came, she'd shrink. Her throat would tighten. Someone else would speak first, everything, and her idea would fade into silence. When I asked her why, she said, "I just don't sound confident enough. People won't take me seriously." But as we talked deeper, everything, what came out wasn't about her voice. It was about her story. As a child, every time she tried to express herself, she was told to lower her tone, to not be dramatic, everything, to calm down. Somewhere in her mind, speaking up became connected with being wrong. Her body remembered that. Her voice learned to hide everything. That's what many of us don't realize. Our voice carries memory. It holds every moment of being silenced, judged, or dismissed. It remembers when you spoke and were laughed at, everything, or when you shared something vulnerable and someone shrugged it off. And each of those moments becomes a quiet whisper of hesitation the next time you try to speak, everything. That's why finding confidence in your voice starts not with techniques or posture or breathing exercises. It starts with compassion, everything. You have to forgive yourself for the times you stayed silent. You have to meet that nervous, shaky part of yourself not with shame, but with understanding. Ask yourself this, everything. When did I first start doubting my voice? Was it at school when someone interrupted me and everyone laughed? Was it at home when my ideas weren't taken seriously? Everything. Or maybe it wasn't one moment, but a slow, steady accumulation of being overlooked. When you trace your hesitation back to its roots, everything, you realize that your lack of confidence isn't proof of weakness. It's evidence of experience. You've been taught to protect yourself from rejection, everything. But that protection has become a cage. Confidence, in truth, isn't about never feeling fear. It's about not letting fear decide how loud your truth is allowed to be, everything. Every confident person you admire, the speakers, leaders, teachers, they all feel the same nerves you do. The only difference is they've learned to work with it, everything. They don't see fear as a stop sign. They see it as a signal that something important is about to happen. Here's something powerful to remember: your voice is an instrument, everything, but you are the player. And like any instrument, it responds to how you treat it. When you feed it doubt, it trembles. When you feed it belief, it strengthens, everything. Speak to yourself the way you wish the world would speak to you, with respect, patience, and curiosity. Instead of saying, "I'm bad at speaking," try saying, "Everything. I'm learning to express myself more confidently." Instead of saying, No one listens to me. Try. I'm practicing how to make my words resonate. Words shape reality, everything, especially the words you say to yourself. There's a small exercise that helps reconnect you with that inner voice. Find a quiet place and say something simple out loud. Your name, everything. Your favorite quote or something you truly believe in. Notice how it feels to hear your own voice fill the air. Don't analyze it, don't judge it. Just listen. Everything. Most people rarely listen to themselves without criticism. But the more you get comfortable with your own sound, the more naturally it will flow in the presence of others. Everything. Let me tell you about a man named Kareem. He worked in sales, brilliant mind, sharp ideas, everything. But his manager told him he didn't sound confident enough. He tried everything, rehearsed scripts, watched videos, mimicked speakers. Nothing worked. Until one day, everything. He stopped performing and started connecting. He realized his nervousness came from trying to sound like someone else. The moment he started speaking like himself, relaxed, natural, everything. With quiet conviction, everything changed. People listened. Because authenticity always carries confidence, even when the voice shakes. Everything. We often think confidence is about volume, speaking louder, pushing harder. But that's not true. Some of the most powerful speakers barely raise their voice. Everything. What they have is presency. Presence comes from being fully connected to what you're saying. You're not focused on how you look or how you sound. You're focused on what you mean. Everything. When your focus shifts from self-consciousness to purpose, your voice naturally finds strength. So the next time you prepare to speak, whether it's in a meeting, a classroom, everything, or even a conversation with someone important, pause for a second, feel your breath. Remind yourself, I'm not here to impress. Everything. I'm here to express. That simple shift changes everything. Expression is about sharing truth. Impression is about seeking approval. One frees you, the other traps you. Everything. It's okay to be nervous. It's okay to stumble. Your value doesn't decrease because your words come out imperfectly. Everything. Think of a time when someone spoke to you with genuine emotion. Maybe their voice cracked. Maybe they paused to find the right words. But you felt them. You connected. Everything. That's the kind of speaking that moves people. And it doesn't require flawless delivery. It requires honesty. When you start trusting your voice again, something magical happens. Everything. You begin to notice that your words flow more naturally, your tone steadies, your pace slows. You stop overthinking every sentence because you're no longer fighting yourself. And slowly, everything. The gap between who you are inside and how you express yourself on the outside begins to close. That's what true confidence feels like. Alignment. Everything. The voice within you has always been there, waiting for permission to come forward. You don't need to earn that permission. You just need to stop withholding it. Everything. Every time you speak your truth, even if it's uncomfortable, you give your confidence a little more room to breathe. And as it grows, so will your presence. Because in the end, everything. Speaking confidently isn't about being the loudest person in the room. It's about being the most real. It's about standing in your truth, even if your hands shake. Everything. It's about trusting that your words have weight because you have worth. Confidence doesn't start in the voice. It starts in the heart. And once your heart believes everything, your voice will follow. You know that feeling right before you have to speak, that sudden rush in your chest, your heart pounding a little faster than usual. Everything. Your palms turning slightly clammy, and that inner voice whispering, "What if I mess up?" It's as if your body suddenly betrays you in the very moment you need it to stay calm. Everything. The truth is that feeling isn't weakness. It isn't evidence that you're not ready. It's your body preparing you for something important. It's energy. Raw. Everything. Powerful energy, waiting to be directed. Speaking anxiety doesn't mean you're incapable. It means you care. You care about what you're saying, how you'll be perceived, everything, and what the outcome might be. The problem is not the fear itself, but what you would do with it. Think back to a time when you stood up in front of others, maybe in class, at work, everything, or even in a casual conversation where all eyes turned to you. Your mind started racing, your breath shortened, your voice trembled just slightly. You probably thought, everything. I need to calm down. But here's something people rarely understand: trying to calm down in that moment doesn't work. Everything. You can't force your body into stillness when it's wired for action. What you can do is redirect that energy. Instead of fighting the nerves, use them. Everything. Imagine that same surge of adrenaline not as a warning, but as your body's way of saying, You're ready. Everything. This matters. That shift, that mental reframing, is where everything begins to change. When we experience anxiety before speaking, our brain interprets the situation as a threat. Everything. It's a survival instinct. The same reaction that once helped our ancestors run from danger now kicks in when we're about to give a presentation or speak up in a meeting. Everything. The difference is you're not facing a tiger, you're facing judgment. And that's the fear most people never name out loud, the fear of being seen, evaluated, possibly misunderstood. Everything. But when you start to view that nervous energy as fuel, the kind of energy that actors, athletes, and leaders use, it transforms from an obstacle into a tool. Everything. There's a story about a young actor who, just before going on stage, would feel his heart pounding so violently he thought he'd faint. He once told his mentor, "I hate this feeling. Everything. I can't handle it." The mentor smiled and said, "That's not fear. That's your power waking up. Don't suppress it. Ride it." From that day on, everything. The actor began to breathe differently before going on stage. Instead of trying to calm himself, he grounded his feet, took slow, deep breaths, and told himself, everything. This energy is mine to control. Over time, he didn't lose the nerves, he mastered them. That's what breaking the fear barrier truly means. Let's talk about the body first. Everything. Because your body often knows what's happening before your mind does. When anxiety hits, your breathing becomes shallow. That sends a message to your brain that you're in danger. Everything. Which only intensifies the fear. The quickest way to reverse it is through intentional breathing. Try this: inhale deeply through your nose for 4 counts, hold for 2, everything, and exhale slowly through your mouth for 6. Do this a few times before speaking. What this does is tell your nervous system, I'm safe, I'm in control. Your heart rate stabilizes. Everything. Your voice steadies and your thoughts begin to clear. It's simple but powerful because it reconnects your body and mind. Then there's posture. Everything. The way you hold yourself directly affects how you feel. When you hunch, shrink, or avoid eye contact, your body reinforces the message of insecurity. But when you stand tall, shoulders back, everything, chin slightly up, you send a new signal: Darzan's I belong here. You don't have to fake confidence. Just create the physical space where confidence can exist. Everything. Even if your mind hasn't caught up yet, your body will lead the way. Now let's shift to the mental side of the fear barrier. Everything. Most people approach speaking as a performance, something to be judged, scored, or compared. But confident speakers don't perform, they connect. Everything. When you view communication as a conversation rather than a performance, everything changes. You stop trying to impress and start trying to express. Everything. You stop aiming to be perfect and start aiming to be present. That small change of focus removes enormous pressure, because the truth is everything. People aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for authenticity. They want to feel something real. Think about someone you admire as a speaker. Maybe a teacher, a leader, everything, or a creator whose words move you. Chances are, what made them powerful wasn't flawless delivery or memorized precision. It was presence. They spoke with you, not at you. Everything. They allowed pauses. They made eye contact. Their voice carried warmth, not performance. That's not talent. That's emotional confidence. Everything. It's the courage to be human in front of others. Let me share something that might surprise you. Even the most seasoned speakers get nervous. Actors before a show, politicians before debates, CEOs before major presentations. Everything. The difference between them and the average person isn't that they're fearless. It's that they've learned how to work with fear, not against it. Everything. They've trained their minds to translate anxiety into alertness. Their bodies might feel the same rush, but their brains interpret it as readiness. That's a skill you can build. Everything. Here's a practical exercise that can help. Before your next speaking moment, whether it's a meeting, interview, or conversation, take 1 minute to visualize. Everything. Close your eyes and picture yourself standing in that moment. Feel your heartbeat. Hear your voice steady and clear. Imagine the confidence radiating from you, not loud or forced. Everything, but calm and centered. Picture the people listening, engaged, nodding slightly as your words land. Visualization primes your brain for success. When the real moment comes, everything, it feels familiar, like you've already succeeded once. Another useful shift is to stop labeling yourself as nervous. The language you use matters. Every time you say, everything, I'm nervous, you reinforce the idea that something's wrong. Instead, say, I'm excited. It's not a lie. Physiologically, excitement and nervousness are almost identical. Everything. Your body doesn't know the difference, but your brain does. I'm excited. Tells your mind this energy is a positive signal, something that helps you perform, not hinders you. Everything. Over time, this simple reframe changes how you experience the same physical sensations. It also helps to lower the stakes in your mind. Everything. We tend to imagine every speaking moment as if it's make or break, as if one stumble means failure. But speaking is just communication. It's human interaction. Everything. Even if you forget a line or lose your place, people won't remember the slip. They'll remember how you made them feel. If your intention is genuine, everything, your humanity will speak louder than any mistake. When I coach people who struggle with speaking anxiety, I often ask them, "What are you afraid of?" Most say, "Everything. I'm afraid I'll look stupid." Then I ask, "To whom?" Usually, they can't even name a specific person. It's this invisible audience in their minds, everything. This idea of judgment that feels enormous but doesn't actually exist. The moment they realize that, something clicks. Everything. They see that their fear was built on an illusion, a shadow with no substance. So here's something to remember: courage doesn't mean you stop feeling fear. Everything. It means you walk through it anyway. Every time you speak, despite the shaking, you're training your mind that you can handle discomfort. And each time you do, everything, the fear loses a little more of its power. That's how confidence is built, not in the absence of fear, but in your ability to act alongside it. Everything. Now imagine the next time you're about to speak. You feel your heart beat a little faster. You take a deep breath, straighten your posture, and tell yourself, "This is energy. Everything. This is my body preparing me to do something that matters." You open your mouth and the words begin to flow, not perfectly, not rehearsed, but authentically. And for the first time, everything. Instead of wishing the feeling away, you ride it. You channel it. You own it. That's the shift from anxiety to assurance. Everything. That's the moment you stop being afraid of your voice and start trusting it. Because the truth is, confidence doesn't arrive one day like a gift. Everything. It grows through every uncomfortable moment you face and every fear you transform into fuel. The more you lean into that discomfort, the more power you discover within it. Everything. The fear doesn't disappear. It becomes part of your strength. And when that happens, you no longer need to silence the trembling in your voice. Everything. You simply speak and let the world hear the courage behind it. Clarity is one of the most underrated forms of power. When you speak clearly, everything, you're not just sharing words. You're transferring understanding. You're building bridges between minds. Everything. Think about the last time you listened to someone who spoke with such precision and calm that every word seemed to land exactly where it should. Everything. You didn't just hear them, you felt their certainty. That's what clarity does. It creates connection. It commands respect without shouting for it. And the beautiful thing is, everything. Anyone can learn it. Most people think being a great speaker is about having a large vocabulary or using complex sentences, but that's a trap. Everything. Real clarity begins with simplicity. The kind of simplicity that cuts through noise and goes straight to the heart. When you simplify, you amplify. Everything. And that's what great communicators understand, that the goal isn't to impress people with words, it's to reach them. I remember a young woman named Sarah who worked in marketing. Everything. Brilliant mind, full of ideas, but every time she presented to her team, her message got lost. She'd fill her sentences with filler words, circle around her points, everything, and over-explain every little detail. One day her manager told her something that changed everything. "Sarah, you don't need to sound smart. You need to sound clear." At first, everything. It stung. She thought clarity meant dumbing things down. But then she realized that clarity isn't about less intelligence. It's about more intention. She started preparing differently. Everything. Instead of trying to say everything she knew, she focused on what people needed to understand. She structured her thoughts, trimmed the excess, and practiced pausing before key points. Everything. Within weeks, her confidence skyrocketed. People finally listened, not because her vocabulary changed, but because her message became simple, direct, and powerful. Everything. That's what happens when you choose clarity over complexity. Your voice starts carrying weight. Clarity begins before you ever open your mouth. It starts in your mind. Everything. If your thoughts are cluttered, your speech will be too. So before you speak, take a breath and ask yourself, what do I really want to say? Not what sounds impressive, not what fills time, everything. But what matters most? That single question brings your mind into focus and cuts away the noise. Because when you know your message, your words naturally align behind it. Everything. Many people speak in circles because they're afraid of silence. They think pauses make them look unsure, so they fill every second with words. Everything. But here's the truth. Silence is your ally. A pause after a strong point lets it land. It gives your listener time to absorb what you've said. Everything. The greatest speakers in history knew how to use silence like punctuation, deliberate, intentional, powerful. When you pause, people lean in. Everything. They sense that you have something worth waiting for. Let's talk about structure. A clear message has a shape, a beginning, a middle, and an end. Everything. Think of it like guiding someone through a hallway. You don't open every door at once. You lead them step by step. Start with context, build your point, then close with impact. For example, everything. If you're explaining a new idea, start by stating the problem, then introduce your solution, and finally explain why it matters. That simple structure transforms rambling into rhythm. Everything. I once coached an entrepreneur who struggled to pitch her business idea. Every time she spoke to investors, she overwhelmed them with data. She'd start with technical details, everything. Jump to market size, then circle back to personal motivation. All in one breath. Her ideas were great, but her delivery felt chaotic. I asked her to simplify her message into one sentence. Everything. I help small businesses grow through smarter digital strategy. That was her anchor. Every point after that had to connect to that central line. Within minutes, everything, her entire presentation changed. It became clean, focused, persuasive. The clarity of her message finally matched the power of her vision. Clarity also depends on how you choose your words. Everything. You don't need to use fancy language to sound professional. In fact, the simpler the word, the stronger it hits. People remember what they understand. If your goal is to inspire, motivate, everything, or lead, speak like you're talking to someone you care about, not someone you're trying to impress. Authenticity always resonates more deeply than eloquence ever will. Everything. One of the most powerful tools for clarity is visualization. Before you speak, imagine your listener, not as a crowd, but as one person sitting across from you. Picture their expression. Everything. Imagine what they might be thinking. When you speak to someone as if it's a conversation, not a performance, your tone softens, your words become more natural, and your confidence grows. Everything. You stop speaking at people and start speaking to them. Now let's talk about rhythm, the unspoken melody of clarity. Every voice has a tempo. When you rush, everything. Your message loses its shape. When you slow down and let your tone breathe, your words gain gravity. That's why great communicators never sound hurried. They sound present. Everything. They sound in control. You don't need to talk fast to sound smart. You need to talk clearly to be heard. Try this simple exercise. Record yourself explaining something you know well. Everything. Then play it back. Notice if you're rushing. Notice where you can pause, emphasize, or simplify. That awareness alone can transform the way you speak. Everything. Another element of clarity is emotional alignment. Your tone must match your message. If you're sharing something inspiring, let warmth enter your voice. If it's serious, everything. Ground your tone. People may forget your words, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And that feeling comes from emotional clarity. It's when your voice, words, everything, and intent are all speaking the same language. There's also something powerful about repetition. When you want a message to stick, don't be afraid to repeat key phrases or ideas. Everything not in a robotic way, but in a rhythmic, intentional way that reinforces meaning. Politicians, speakers, everything, and storytellers all use this technique because the mind remembers what it hears more than once. Repetition builds recognition, and recognition builds belief. Everything. But here's where many people go wrong. They mistake confidence for volume. They think being heard means being loud. It doesn't. Clarity isn't about shouting over others. Everything. It's about making sure your words have purpose. A calm, steady voice often commands more respect than a loud, anxious one. Everything. When you speak with conviction, when every word carries weight, people listen differently. They sense your confidence not from your volume, everything, but from your certainty. If you ever doubt your ability to speak clearly, remember this: clarity is a skill, not a gift. It's something you build through awareness and intention. Everything. Each conversation is a chance to practice. When you speak to a friend, try summarizing your thoughts in one sentence. When you explain an idea, focus on the essence. Over time, everything. You'll find that your speech starts mirroring your thought process. Cleaner, simpler, sharper. Think of the people in your life who truly communicate well. Everything. They're not necessarily the loudest or the most charismatic. They're the ones who make things make sense. They can take complex ideas and make them feel effortless to understand. Everything. That's the magic of clarity. It removes distance. It turns confusion into connection. Clarity is also about courage. The courage to pause. The courage to simplify. Everything. The courage to trust that your message, when spoken with honesty, is enough. You don't need to decorate it with unnecessary words or dress it up to sound impressive. Everything. You just need to say it clearly, calmly, and with conviction. Because clarity, at its core, is truth made audible. And when you learn to speak with that kind of truth, something changes. Everything. People start leaning in. They start believing in your words, not because they're perfect, but because they're real. And in a world full of noise, everything, the person who speaks clearly, with heart, intention, and purpose, becomes unforgettable. Everything. There's something magnetic about a person who walks into a room and instantly captures attention, without saying a single word. You've seen it before. Maybe at a meeting, an event, everything. Or even in a casual setting. Someone enters, and the energy in the room subtly shifts. People glance up, conversations pause for a beat. Everything. And everyone seems to instinctively acknowledge their presence. It's not about beauty, status, or loudness. It's presence. Pure unspoken confidence. Presence is energy made visible. Everything. It's the way you carry yourself, the calmness in your eyes, the groundedness in your body. It's a silent declaration that says, everything, I belong here. And what's fascinating is that this isn't reserved for the powerful or the famous. It's something you can build, strengthen, and live with every single day. Everything. Think about the last time you felt truly comfortable in your own skin. Maybe it was a moment when you weren't trying to impress anyone. You were just being yourself. That ease, everything, that relaxed authenticity is what others read as confidence. The body doesn't lie. When your words say one thing but your body says another, people always believe your body. Everything. That's why mastering presence and body language is not about learning tricks. It's about aligning your inner state with your outer expression. Everything. Let's start with something simple but powerful: how you enter a room. Most people underestimate how much the first few seconds of their presence communicate. When you walk into a space, everything. You're telling a silent story. Your shoulders, your pace, your posture, all of it sends a signal. Are you saying, I'm nervous, unsure, and I hope I'm accepted? Or are you saying, everything, I'm grounded, I respect myself, and I'm ready to connect? The difference lies not in arrogance, but in self-awareness. Everything. I once coached a young professional who dreaded speaking up in meetings. She told me she felt invisible, like her ideas never landed. When I observed her entering a room, I understood why. Everything. Her steps were quick and small, her shoulders slightly hunched, eyes darting downward. None of it was conscious. It was the body language of someone trying not to be seen. Everything. We worked on one simple thing: walking slower, standing taller, making eye contact for just 1 second longer than felt comfortable. Within weeks, everything. She told me people began greeting her differently. They leaned in when she spoke. They noticed her. Nothing magical had happened. She had simply started to own her space. You see, everything. Your body constantly communicates safety or tension. When you're tense, people sense it. When you're open, they mirror that openness. Everything. Confidence is contagious because it makes others feel safe in your presence. That's why leaders who seem effortlessly influential often don't say much at all. They embody calm certainty. Everything. Their gestures are measured, their posture is balanced, and their energy feels steady. Now, let's talk about the eyes, the most underestimated tool of connection. Everything. Eye contact is not about staring, it's about being present. When you genuinely look at someone, not as a task but as a person, they feel seen. Everything. That one simple act builds trust faster than 1,000 words. But eye contact also reveals how comfortable you are with yourself. If you find it hard to hold someone's gaze, everything, it often means you're avoiding being seen emotionally. Start small. When you talk to someone, hold eye contact for 1 more second than you usually would. Everything. It will feel uncomfortable at first, but it teaches your nervous system to stay present instead of retreating. Over time, that small habit builds incredible self-assurance. Everything. Your stance speaks even before your words do. Stand with your feet shoulder-width apart. Distribute your weight evenly. Let your arms rest naturally. Everything. It's not about looking stiff or formal. It's about grounding yourself physically so your energy feels stable. When your body is balanced, your mind follows. Everything. Notice how your posture affects your breathing too. A collapsed chest limits your breath, and shallow breathing signals stress to your brain. Open your chest slightly. Everything. Roll your shoulders back and let yourself take full, slow breaths. Instantly, your mind becomes calmer and your voice steadier. Gestures are another reflection of your internal state. Everything. Nervous gestures, fidgeting, crossing arms, tapping feet, leak anxiety. Confident gestures are purposeful and aligned with your message. You don't have to plan them. Everything. They'll flow naturally once you slow down and stay connected to what you're saying. The key is stillness. Not rigid stillness, but the kind that comes from inner peace. Everything. The quieter your body, the louder your presence becomes. There's a famous story about Meryl Streep, often praised for her commanding presence. In interviews, everything. She's been asked how she manages to appear so calm and powerful on screen. Her answer is deceptively simple: she listens. When she's listening, everything. She's not thinking about how she looks or what she'll say next. She's completely attuned to the other person. That's presence. It's not about dominating the space. Everything. It's about being fully there. You can practice this anywhere, at work, in a conversation, or even while waiting in line. Try being completely aware of your body for just 30 seconds. Everything. Notice your breathing, the weight of your feet on the ground, the tension in your shoulders. Then, consciously relax. Allow yourself to take up space. Everything. This small act of awareness gradually transforms how others perceive you because it changes how you perceive yourself. Another layer of presence lies in your tone. Everything. Your voice carries your emotional truth. A shaky or rushed tone usually reflects nervousness, while a warm, steady tone conveys certainty. Everything. Don't force a deeper voice or fake enthusiasm. Focus instead on breathing through your sentences. When you pause before speaking, you create space for your thoughts to settle. Everything. Silence is not your enemy, it's your ally. People who speak with calm pauses signal confidence because they're not rushing to fill the air. They trust their words will land. Everything. Think of a time when you were around someone who made you feel instantly calm. Maybe it was a teacher, a mentor, or a friend. That feeling of safety came not from what they said, everything, but from how they were. Their body language told you they were grounded, and that groundedness invited you to relax too. Everything. You can offer the same gift to others by learning to inhabit your own body more fully. And here's something most people overlook: your presence starts before you even enter the room. Everything. It begins with your internal dialogue. If you walk in thinking, "I hope they like me," your body subtly contracts. But if you enter thinking, "I'm here to contribute, to connect, everything, and to bring value," your body expands naturally. Before any important moment, a presentation, a conversation, a first impression, take a deep breath and anchor that intention. Everything. Imagine yourself radiating calm, focused energy. Let your body mirror that image. Presence is not about being perfect. It's about being centered. Everything. You don't need to be the loudest person in the room. You just need to be fully present in it. The moment you stop performing and start being, people feel it. Everything. They don't remember every word you say, but they always remember how you made them feel. In a world full of noise, everything. The quiet confidence of someone who's comfortable in their own skin stands out like light in a dark room. It's not something you can fake, because real presence is born from authenticity. Everything. It's the intersection of self, respect, awareness, and calm intention. So next time you walk into a room, don't rush. Take a breath, stand tall, let your shoulders drop, your chest open, everything, and your gaze lift. Feel your feet grounded to the floor and your energy centered in your body. Then walk forward with ease, not to impress, but to express who you are. Everything. Because your body is always speaking for you. Make sure it tells the story you want the world to hear. Everything. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that speaking isn't just about words. It's about truth. The kind of truth that doesn't need to shout to be heard. Everything. Because it carries honesty in every tone, strength in every pause, and conviction in every syllable. Everything. When you speak from that place, from your authentic voice, people don't just listen, they feel you. They connect to something deeper than language. Everything. And that is where real impact begins. You see, most of us spend years trying to sound confident. We imitate speakers we admire, copy gestures, memorize lines, and rehearse our tone. Everything. But confidence that's borrowed never lasts. Because authenticity can't be copied. It's discovered. It's already inside you, buried under layers of comparison, fear, everything, and expectation. Finding your authentic voice isn't about becoming someone new. It's about peeling away everything that isn't you. Everything. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you to be quiet, to be proper, to fit in. I remember working with a young woman once. Let's call her Layla. Everything. She had everything going for her. She was talented, intelligent, and hardworking. But whenever she spoke in meetings, her voice would shrink. She'd speak quickly, avoiding eye contact. Everything. Afraid of taking up too much space. One day, after a particularly stressful presentation, she asked me, "Everything. How do I sound confident like those people who always know what to say?" I told her, "You don't. You don't sound like them. Everything. You sound like a you." That moment changed everything for her. We worked not on her pitch, not on her grammar, but on her belief that her words mattered. Everything. She started sharing stories about her own experiences, speaking from emotion rather than trying to sound perfect. Slowly, people began to lean in when she spoke. Everything. They didn't applaud her technique. They connected with her sincerity. And that's the secret. People don't crave polished perfection. They crave something real. The truth is, everything. You already have everything you need to speak with impact. The problem isn't lack of ability. It's the habit of hiding. Most people hide behind rehearsed phrases, fake smiles, everything, and carefully measured tones because they're terrified of being judged. But when you try too hard to be liked, you lose your power. Confidence isn't built on impressing others. Everything. It's built on expressing yourself honestly, even when your voice shakes. So how do you find that authentic voice? You start by listening, not to others, but to yourself. Everything. Notice the moments when your words feel heavy or forced. Those are clues that you're trying to please instead of express. Pay attention to when your tone feels natural. Everything. When you speak passionately without overthinking. That's your truth trying to come out. The goal isn't to sound confident every second. It's to sound true every time. Everything. Here's something powerful to remember: your story, your experiences, your emotions. They are your greatest speaking tools. Think about it. Everything. The speakers and leaders who move us the most are never the ones with perfect diction or flawless delivery. They're the ones who speak from experience, from scars, from something real. Everything. When you share from that space, even if your voice trembles, it still carries weight. Because authenticity has a frequency that people recognize instantly. Everything. There's a man I once met at a community event, an older gentleman named Marcus. He wasn't a professional speaker, but he stood up to share a few words about his life. His hands shook. Everything. His voice cracked, but as he spoke about losing his business and rebuilding his life from nothing, the entire room went silent. Not because he had the best voice, everything, but because he had the most real one. When he finished, there wasn't a single person who didn't feel changed by his story. That's impact, raw, human, and unforgettable. Everything. To speak with impact, you must allow yourself to be seen. That means speaking with emotion, not in spite of it. So many of us have been taught to suppress feeling when we speak. Everything. As if being composed means being detached. But your emotions are what make your message powerful. Joy, frustration, passion, vulnerability. All of it gives texture to your words. Everything. If you're talking about something that matters to you, let people feel that it matters. Everything. Don't hide the shake in your voice. Let it remind others that you care deeply about what you're saying. Here's a truth I want you to remember: perfection pushes people away. Everything. Authenticity pulls them closer. When you try to sound flawless, people hear effort. When you speak honestly, they hear connection. The difference is energy. One drains, the other inspires. Everything. So stop worrying about filler words, about every or pause. Instead, focus on meaning. What do you truly want to say? Why does it matter? Who are you hoping to reach? Everything. When your intention is clear, your voice naturally follows. Try this before you speak. Take a slow breath and ask yourself, everything. What do I want them to feel when I finish? Not what you want them to think, what you want them to feel. Maybe you want them to feel hopeful, confident, understood. Everything. When you align your words with emotion, your delivery transforms. Your tone becomes more grounded, your pacing more natural, and your message more alive. Everything. Because the heart always knows how to communicate what the mind struggles to explain. There's another layer to authenticity: vulnerability. Most people misunderstand it. Everything. They think vulnerability is weakness, but it's the opposite. It's the courage to be seen as you are. When you share your challenges, your doubts, or even your failures, everything, you give others permission to be human too. That's how trust is built. That's how audiences connect. Everything. The best communicators aren't the ones who stand above others. They're the ones who stand with them. Think about someone you admire, maybe a teacher, leader, everything, or friend who always speaks with power. Chances are it's not because they have perfect grammar or an impressive vocabulary. It's because they speak from a place of truth. Everything. Their words feel alive because they come from lived experience. You trust them because they sound real. That's what makes them unforgettable. You can create that same presence. Everything. You can walk into any room and speak from a place that's unshakable because it's built on who you truly are. But it takes practice. Not the kind where you memorize lines, everything, but the kind where you get comfortable with your own voice. Record yourself speaking. Listen not for flaws, but for moments that sound genuine. Notice when you sound connected, grounded, everything, at ease. That's your authentic tone. Strengthen it by using it more often. In daily conversations, in meetings, even when talking to yourself. When you start living from your voice, everything, not just using it, something shifts. People will sense it. You'll walk differently, breathe differently, and speak differently. Everything. Because confidence doesn't come from controlling every word. It comes from trusting yourself in every moment. And when you trust yourself, you don't need to force impact. Everything. You become the impact. One day you'll speak somewhere, maybe on a stage, maybe in a room with just one person, and you'll realize you're not trying anymore. Everything. You're not rehearsing, not performing, not pretending. You're simply expressing. Your voice will flow naturally, your words will land deeply, and your presence will fill the space. Everything. That's when you'll understand that speaking with impact isn't a skill to master. It's a truth to remember. Every person has an authentic voice waiting to be heard. Everything. It's the sound of your conviction, your compassion, your courage. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be yours. Everything. Because the world doesn't need more polished speakers. It needs more honest ones. And when you finally stop trying to impress and start trying to express everything, you'll find that your voice carries more power than you ever imagined. Speaking with impact is not about standing out. It's about standing true. Everything. It's about knowing that your words have meaning because you have meaning. When you speak from that place, that deep, unwavering sense of self, you don't just communicate. Everything. You connect, you inspire, you move people, and most importantly, you remind them to find their own voice too. Everything. That is the moment when your speech becomes more than communication. It becomes transformation, not just for others, but for you. Because every time you speak from your authentic self, everything, you reclaim a piece of your power. And that is where confidence is born, not from the noise outside, but from the truth within.